Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Farzy show here at the Steven Singer Studios. My name's Marc Farzetta. The Phillies are just, God, do I need to start with them today? It's just depressing. You get 12 runs in a game, 12 runs to no runs, and then the next day, 10 runs. You allow 10 runs, you get no runs. I understand it's going to be difficult to get consistency with the roster that you have right now. And I understand Joe Girardi after the game saying this is what we have. This is what we have right now. Well, we'll let you hear from Joe Girardi. But tell me if you get the same vibe I got listening to the Phillies manager after the loss last night of, well, this is what we got. It was like a throwing your hands up. Hey, it felt like, and I'm sure they want to make the playoffs. I'm sure they'd love to make the playoffs and all that. But it just kind of felt like, well, if we make the playoffs, it'll be in spite of what we're doing right now. Like, yeah, no kidding. I won't go so far as to say it was a white flag by the Phillies manager last night, but it kind of felt like that. It was like, all right, well, Ramon and Rosa is what we got going on there. So this is what we got. It felt like bringing a knife and fight. Well, we brought it. That's all we pack. So this is what we're going to use. That's kind of what it felt like. It kind of felt like all you had was shorts and a T-shirt, and you were going to Alaska. Oh, well, this is what we have, so I guess this is just what we're going to wear. Like, this just – I was banging my head against the wall last night, especially when I continued to watch Aaron Nola in the month of September implode. And we all continue to watch Aaron Nola in the month of September implode. And it shouldn't be about even the lineup at this point. Like, the lineup should be able to get your number one pitcher going into the season. Him, Zach Wheeler, like they did yesterday, even a guy like Kyle Gibson, even a guy like Ranger Suarez. You should be able to get these guys enough run support where they should be able to cruise for 6, 7, even 8 innings at this point of the season. Not Ranger Suarez for that, but I'm talking about the top guys in the rotation, guys like Aaron Nola. They should be in locked-in mode right now to push you over the hump. We should be looking at Aaron Nola and go, wow, what an amazing start for him. 7 innings, 8 innings. And you know what? The run support they got, all they needed was 2 runs, and that was enough. That's what we should be getting in September from guys like Aaron Nola. Or Aaron Nola. Let me just be more specific and say from himself. And I don't feel like we have been getting that, and we have not. Statement of fact, we have not been getting that from Aaron Nola. It has been a shaky year. Last year, it was a ridiculously shaky year for him. And this year has not been much better when it comes to how a Phillies quote-unquote ace number 1 starter should be pitching in this rotation. You see the play in the 3rd inning with Freddie Galvis stepping up there, or not stepping up there, really, at shortstop, where you have the pitcher hit a sharp grounder to his left, and Freddie Galvis, who is a phenomenal fielding shortstop, third baseman, wherever you put him, the guy's unfazed. He is one of those whatever type dudes. You can put him anywhere on the diamond, and he'll produce. Yesterday was not an example of that. And later in that inning, they end up scoring 3 runs, and maybe it's a different story if you're starting out that inning with an out. Maybe it's a different story. It wasn't, unfortunately. It is what it is. Another phrase we love hearing a lot from our baseball players, our managers, and our coaches. So you see Freddie Galvis bots that play at shortstop. Then the 6th inning, I'm still trying to make sense when you know a guy just doesn't have it. And that's another reason why the line from Joe Girardi after the game bothered me so much. This is what we have. Ramon Rosa goes out there yesterday in the 6th inning, throws 34 pitches. Only 18 of those pitches are for strikes. He walks in a run to the pitcher. And yet you leave him in there. And then Cam Bedrosian is your next guy out of the bullpen. This is what we have. I remember people doing this, and this is not revisionist history. I remember people looking at Gabe Kapler, and Gabe Kapler would leave guys in there from the bullpen, or Gabe Kapler would leave guys or have guys continuously in the lineup that weren't good, that weren't producing. And I remember one of the things people were saying then was, are these silent protests from the manager of the Phillies to tell the front office, what the hell, man? This is what you're giving me right now? And that's kind of what yesterday felt like. It felt like a protest from the manager going, well, this is what we got, so I don't know what you want from me. Now, I don't know if he was just a little melancholy about what his team is doing right now, and this is all he can muster up as far as an answer, or if it was that silent protest and people tried to look at Gabe Kapler and say, oh, no, this is more directed at the front office than it is anything the manager really wants to do. It's what he's forced to do right now. It's not really what he wants to do right now. Anybody would have been better than what Russell was giving you yesterday when he came into the game in the 6th inning. Anybody would have been better than him. Even Camper Grozen, who the ball hit off him yesterday, was just a monster shot. A monster shot that almost left the ballpark at Miller Park yesterday. That's how much of a moonshot that it was. Left center field, just kept on going. It was one of those instances where you're watching the game on TV and you're going, is that going to land at some point? Did the cameraman mess up? No, the cameraman was all over it. It was just hard to pick up that baseball. We're going to get into some Eagles conversation, by the way. And one of the dumbest things that is, for whatever reason, still going on in baseball, or excuse me, in Philadelphia sports. We'll get into that conversation in a second. But without further ado, I just want you to hear the delivery of this line from your manager, Joe Girardi, after the game last night when he was asked about kind of having a short stack when it came to, not a full deck, when it came to the lineup, his pitching rotation, as well as the bullpen.
This is what we have. Yeah, we are. I mean, we got to get it done. I mean, you can't say if we had this guy or had that guy. We don't. So, we have to find a way to get it done with the guys that we have.
Am I being over dramatic? Like, when you see him and you listen to him, and it comes, by the way, if over dramatic is kind of my thing. It's why I do this. But I listened to Joe Girardi, and here it is one more time.
This is what we have. Yeah.
This is what we have. Yeah. This is what we have. Like, this is all we got. I know it's late in the season, and I know that they're just playing hypercritical right now. They're trying to make sure that they can maintain whatever it is they do have, and that's why you see Zach Wheeler being taken out at 99 pitches. That's why you see them being overly cautious with a lot of guys in their bullpen and their rotation because they feel as if they're decimated already. I think you should have enough to at least be competitive, and I know that's after a 12-0 victory. They immediately hand that right back with a 10-0 defeat. And I know that is not exactly the way a consistent team is going to play, but at some point, some of these guys got to step up in terms of the guys you're not expecting a lot from in the bullpen, guys you're not really expecting a lot. I mean, I don't really expect a lot from Aaron Nola at this point because it's been so long over the last 2 seasons, and I know last year was a shortened season, but it's been so long after the last 2 years where you've just seen him been wildly inconsistent. And Joe Girardi, I will agree with this. Joe Girardi said yesterday after the game that he didn't necessarily think that Aaron Nola had bad pitches or had a dead arm. It wasn't anything like what we saw in his previous start. It wasn't anything like that. You thought he had some good stuff yesterday. It was just that he was playing one of the best teams in baseball, one of the best lineups in baseball that have just been blowing teams out of the water all season long. So when you see Aaron Nola go out there yesterday, I don't necessarily think it was anything because he didn't have good stuff or he didn't have his best stuff. He just got out-battled yesterday. He got outmaneuvered yesterday. And when you play a team like this, as good as they've been playing, and you have a pitcher that has been as inconsistent as Aaron Nola, you need the guys behind him in the lineup, behind him in the field to be able to back him up. And yesterday, he certainly did not have that. And then when it came time to go to the bullpen, forget about it. They were done. They were cooked. They were toast from yesterday. Kyle Gibson will get the ball later today. 7:40 start time again against the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll see how he bounces back from a rough outing his last time out there. We'll also see. By the way, JT Realmuto was in the leadoff spot yesterday. I believe he had a 6 or 7 pitch at bat in his first at bat of the ballgame. So good for JT. A good solid bat for a leadoff man. Didn't really do much after that. It was nothing that caught anybody off guard, unfortunately. And hey, this is what we have. I will say, yesterday was a day that you did really miss Rhys Hoskins. Because it's not like the Phillies have a plethora of right-handed bats in the lineup against a left-handed pitcher. And it seems to be one of the things we always look at with the Phillies, that when it comes to a left-handed pitcher, you just start shaking in your boots just a little bit. And yesterday was another example of that, unfortunately. So hopefully the Phillies bounce back today, and we'll see what they got, and we'll see. Yeah. Bottom line is I don't see them making the playoffs. So there you go. And I kind of met every ounce of my excitement with the Phillies after any win that they've had recently with, hey, this is great, but they're not going to make the playoffs. And now this is kind of why they're not going to make the playoffs. So we'll follow that game tomorrow, and we'll break it down for you tomorrow as well. But now here's the other thing. Marcus Hayes is going to join us from Philadelphia Inquirer, Inquirer.com. And Marcus said in his tweet about this article, which is what drew me to it, that he looked for 5 reasons to be excited about the Eagles defense going into this year. 5 reasons for the Eagles to get excited about the Eagles defense. He said he came up with 11, but he cut it down to 10 just to have that perfect number. Marcus talks about that article with us coming up in just a little bit, because when I'm thinking about it, if this really is, and look, we all know Fletcher Cox, we all know who he is. Javon Hargrave, I think we know what he can be in the middle of this defensive line. We know what Brandon Graham's going to give you. I think we know what to expect from Derek Barnett. One of the X factors in all of this is if Josh Sweat is finally going to live up to, and I like Josh Sweat. I don't say finally out as much of a complaint as much as I do an acknowledgement of how many times I've heard this guy built up by certain players, by teammates. And I've told you the story before about talking to Chris Long the year they won the Super Bowl, and I asked him who's going to be the breakout guy, and he said that it was going to be Josh Sweat. And then this year, it's the same type of thing. Everyone's talking about how Josh Sweat's going to be the guy to break out. Oh, who's having a really good camp? Josh Sweat. That Josh Sweat fella, he's having a really good camp. So when it comes to that, I want to see all that come to fruition, because if it does, and he's a guy that's coming off the end as an edge rusher that's going to get pressure on the quarterback and starting off against Matt Ryan, then this season is going to be something special if you get production from, again, guys that you're not expected to get production from. And this is what happens in every sport. We were just talking about it with baseball, getting guys from the bullpen or guys you don't expect in the lineup to actually produce. It's the same thing. That's what puts you over the hump. That's why when you look at the Eagles season, you weren't expecting anything from Corey Clement the year they won the Super Bowl. And he actually had a phenomenal rookie year and even a more phenomenal Super Bowl itself. When you get production from guys you're really not expecting from, it really makes a difference on the season. If Josh Sweat can be this guy, if Ryan Kerrigan can show you that he's got enough left in the tank at this point in his career, then this Eagles defense, I think, can do something special. Because I think for the first time in a while, you can look forward to linebacker play. And I never thought I'd say that after Jeremiah Trotter retired. You can look forward to linebacker play. One of the things I like about Alex Singleton, and yes, it's obvious when you pointed out that he led the team in tackles last year, but he's always around the football to make a play. You could count on a guy like Alex Singleton to at least be around the football in the right place at the right time. The questions I have now are what's going to happen with Anthony Harris? What's going to happen with Steve Nelson? What's going to happen with some of these other guys that you're bringing into the secondary? Rodney McLeod coming off an injury. We've always, for a long time, we've been talking about the Eagles secondary. And you can go back to the days of Sheldon Brown and Lito Shepherd, where we're talking about the Eagles secondary. The year they won the Super Bowl, still suspect play from Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby that year. But are we going to see enough consistent cornerback play with Avonte Maddox being moved back in on the inside, a position that he's a lot more comfortable and a lot better at, quite frankly? What can we really expect from this Eagles defense? I think this Eagles defensive line alone is going to turn heads. My questions really come in with what happens with this Eagles secondary. Did they improve enough? Will this defensive line help them out enough and vice versa? Will the coverage be close enough and tight enough to give the defensive line a chance? Or will the defensive line get enough pressure quickly enough to help out the secondary as the season goes on? These are questions that we will be having answered as the season goes on, and it all starts on Sunday at 1 o'clock in Atlanta. So Marcus Hayes from Inquirer.com will be breaking that down for us in the not-too-distant future on the show. I was going to save this for the morning rush, but right before the show, I said, you know what, it's at a point where I'm just tired of it. And I feel like most people side with Terrell Owens. But it's even gotten to a point where it's like, all right, guys, like, can we bury this hatchet already? So long story short, T.O. wants to have some kind of like celebrity boxing match with Donovan McNabb. And like one of the longest running, and I to say dumbest rivalries, in-city rivalries, in sports rivalries, inner city, I don't know how you'd call it. But within our own city, rivalries between two players who played together. I want to call it dumb, but is it dumb if it could have cost you a Super Bowl? Like, T.O.'s complaint is that Donovan wanted to party at the Super Bowl And the last thing he was really concerned about was winning, right? And he wasn't the one that got tired in the Super Bowl. It was even the complaint way back when. And then all the contract stuff that came out the following year with T.O. working his ass off to get back for the Super Bowl on a broken leg, if you remember the story. And then afterwards, T.O. tried to get a contract, and Donovan saying he's not going to get involved in that. He doesn't get involved in other players' contracts. Yet he was getting involved with Brian Westbrook's contract, saying pay the man more or less, and didn't say anything about T.O. T.O. has the shut up argument with Brad Childress and Andy Reid, and all hell broke loose basically after that. Am I petty? Yes. Dumb? I think I'd hold a grudge if I was T.O. and I was looking at somebody else as the guy that possibly cost me the Super Bowl when I fought my ass off to get back on the football field. So even though we're coming up and not too long, a couple years away from 20 years away from what happened, I don't think it's dumb. I think if I'm T.O., I'm holding a grudge as well. But to say that you'd want to fight somebody at this point in the game, it's one of those things that no matter when it comes up, people always want to know the latest in what happened in the rivalry between Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb. People will roll their eyes and say it's stupid and say it's dumb and say get over it. But the minute that fire gets fanned, that flame gets fanned, the minute it gets fanned, people are like, oh, wait a minute, how is this going to break into a great conflagration? Or is this going to be something that we just roll our eyes over? And we tend to do both each time. So I'll read you the exact quote from T.O. coming up in just a minute. But it is just one of those things that no matter what happens, no matter how far removed we get from the Super Bowl where they lost to the Patriots the first time around, it's always the thing that people want to know about. Oh, they said something. What'd they say? And then we react with an eye roll and a lot of us anger. Because a lot of us remember what could have happened that year. So we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But it's just one of those things that just continues to baffle me as the years go on. Let me tell you about, Mike, before we talk to Marcus Hayes, let me tell you about our good friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Finding the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with is great, but don't you hate all the pressure that comes next? Of course, all the engagement talk that comes next. Then there's the pressure of actually shopping around for a ring, the hassle, the haggling, finding a store to trust, and trying to figure out the 4 C's. Discounts, sales, coupons, styles, all the other stuff, all that other nonsense. But at least there are fantastic reasons to actually pull off buying the perfect engagement ring. And that's why people say they really hate Steven Singer, because he takes all those excuses and throws them out. About buying a ring, it's so easy with Steven Singer and Steven Singer Jewelers. I hate Steven Singer. Steven is a Philly jeweler that has been making it too easy to buy real diamonds for over 4 decades. He specializes in diamond engagement rings and has a staff of real jewelry experts, real people that are right there standing by at the ready to make sure you get the perfect ring or the perfect gift at the perfect price. No call center, no sales, no haggling, no codes, no discounts. Just show up at Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, or log on to IHateStevenSinger.com, where they guarantee the perfect price every single day, 365 days a year. How about that? The perfect price. Check out Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philly, or online at IHateStevenSinger.com. Always fast and free shipping right there at IHateStevenSinger.com. Let's talk a little bit more Eagles defense with our friend Marcus Hayes of Inquirer.com as he joins us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. And joining us now on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line from Inquirer.com. You can read one of his latest stories up there right now. You can also check him out on his Twitter feed right there. Marcus Hayes wrote this great story about the Eagles defense. He was only looking for 5 reasons why you should believe in this upcoming season. Came up with 11, but he cut it to 10. Marcus, first off, thank you for doing that. Second, so you were a little surprised how easy it was to find a couple of reasons to think why this defense was going to be good this year.
Some of them are intangible reasons, but some of them are quite tangible. And let me just say, the sponsor, Rothman Orthopaedic, is an apt sponsor for any time I'm on, because they put me back together twice, and they gave my wife a new hip. So we are walking. What do you call it? We are walking, talking, living testaments to their aptitude.
A walking, talking, writing Rothman Orthopaedics advertisement. There you go.
It's true.
Thank you. No, they are phenomenal people. We just meet up with the good doctors there the other day to talk a little bit more about promotions they're going to be doing with the show. They're actually going to be giving us an injury glossary, if you will, talking about different injuries, how long it takes to recover, how they're sustained, and all that stuff. And it's all going to be on our Farzy show page. So we look forward to that. Just to give fans. Yeah, there you go.
I will post that. Thank you.
There you go. That's fine. All right. So when it comes to this defense, I know we always talk about the defensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles with Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave being here now, Malik Jackson no longer here. But when it comes to this defensive line, do you think they are as good as, for lack of a better term, advertised?
You know, it's interesting. They haven't really advertised much, have they?
Not this year, no.
They haven't given us a lot of expectation, which is, you know, kind of unusual for this franchise. This franchise is nobody loves itself more than the Eagles quarterback factory gold standard franchise. But I think I was really interested to see Malik Jackson, Javon Hargrave, and Fletcher Cox play together. That never really happened to the degree we thought because Malik was diminished from his previous injury last year, and Javon was injured last year. So Hargrave was like the MVP of training camp this year because Fletcher Cox didn't really go through training camp and doesn't do that anymore. But Fletcher Cox is the best player they've had probably since Reggie White. You know, he's really a special player regardless of position. Maybe even better than Jason Peters because we didn't get all of the best of Jason Peters. We got half of his spectacular Hall of Fame career. That said, when you have a Fletcher Cox who's 30 and still in his prime, and you put a healthy Javon Hargrave next to him, and you complement that with pretty good, slightly declining Brandon Graham, who, you know, in his decline went to the first Pro Bowl of his career. And you put on the other side Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett, who can be dynamic at times. You know, and I get on Derek Barnett a lot, but he's a pretty good run stopper. He's pretty disciplined. He's a fine first round pick. He's not worth the $10 million he's earning. But I assume that the Eagles would be hyping this up. They haven't really hyped anything up besides Devontae Smith, their first round pick, which I think is incredibly unfair. He's a rookie wide receiver. Those guys historically, recent history is different, but historically they haven't done really well immediately, especially when they don't have, you know, complementary players who are as good or better than them. But all that said, this defensive line could be special, and it could be very deep. You know, Milton Williams, a third-round pick, I think they're kind of downplaying how good he is and how well he played to use him as kind of a surprise swing player. You know, a guy who can really play maybe three positions if you line him up as an outside linebacker, as well as a defensive tackle and a defensive end. And it's just an interesting group of guys. You know, I'm interested to see how they play, and I'm interested to see how Jonathan Gannon, the new defensive coordinator, who's a defensive backs coach, I'm interested to see how much autonomy he gives the defensive line coach and how much like he mixes and matches defensive linemen and linebackers.
Now, the other name that's been out there, as far as you mentioned, Javon Hargrave as an MVP type candidate for training camp and all that. The other name right after that is a name you also mentioned in Josh Sweat. Have you been seeing that same type of hype as far as number one, Javon Hargrave, maybe number two, Josh Sweat is the guy that was most impressive in training camp?
Well, you know what was most interesting to me with the Josh Sweat situation is they didn't play Josh Sweat in the finale. They see him as a starter. And that's, you know, I think that's fine. I would much rather see Josh Sweat start than Derek Barnett. I think he's a better player, more dynamic player, and a more versatile player. But they kind of have an embarrassment of riches because Derek Barnett is serviceable. And Josh Sweat is like, you know, remember when Billy Wagner used to be a big deal when a 100-mile-an-hour, you know, relief pitcher? He's kind of a relief piece, kind of a closer that way. So they don't have to use him. And he's still a little light, you know, for a defensive end. He's still more a 3-4 linebacker than a 4-3 defensive end. But yeah, Josh Sweat, I think they're downplaying him. I think they're downplaying Milton Williams. And I think they're downplaying the entire defensive line, which is my greatest, you know, reason for optimism for Eagles fans as far as this defense goes.
Now, Ryan Kerrigan is a guy that it's an unfair question to even ask at this point because we barely saw him at all. He broke his thumb or had the thumb injury, got the surgery and all that. What do you think we can expect from Ryan Kerrigan in his first year with the Eagles?
You know, I see him as kind of a Chris Long type guy. You know, he can play 35, 40% of the snaps. If he gets, you know, a half a sack a game, that's a huge bonus. It really is. He's the kind of guy that you hope will make a game-changing play in 3 or 4 of the games and will give Brandon Graham the kind of rest that Brandon Graham needs at this point. You hope that between them you can get 100% of the snaps at left defensive end / left outside linebacker. That would be great. And that's really what Chris Long did and did very effectively. Also with Ryan Kerrigan, you get the Chris Long type leadership and professionalism. He's going to be in shape. He's been the NFC East the entire time. He knows every scheme in the NFC East, including the Washington football teams where he came from. So he's a really valuable guy. He might be more valuable than Chris Long was when Chris Long landed here. I think at the age of 31 or 32. I think Ryan might be 33.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair evaluation of it all. You mentioned Jonathan Gannon and his history as a defensive backs coach, his history with the secondary and all that. I mean, Darius Slay, I think we know what we can get from him. The other side of the football, though, it comes into question how well this secondary can perform. Are we going to be looking at a secondary that's waiting on Rodney McLeod to get back? Are we going to be really, praying that hoping sooner rather than later? Or do you think with this defensive line and the linebacker play that this defense can hold its own until a guy like Rodney McLeod comes back?
Well, I'm not a huge Rodney McLeod guy, honestly. I think he's undersized. He doesn't make big plays. He sort of goes to the right place and sort of forces things to the other players who might make plays. He's not an impact safety, but there's a lot to be said for being in the right place and, making a quarterback make a tougher throw, or maybe being in a position where you distract the receiver from, receiving the ball because you're in the area. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but he's not a dynamic player. And I'm not sure how dynamic he's going to be coming off ACL surgery. So I don't think that he's the cavalry. I think he is a serviceable player, but I think the entire secondary is much better with the removal of Jalen Mills and putting Avonte Maddox back on the inside. Jalen Mills was a bad cornerback who was a worse safety, and I'm not blaming him necessarily.
I understand.
He should have been a safety to begin with. He was a big enough guy to play safety. He was never a cornerback, really. He was never in the front of their minds as a cornerback. So his tenure with the Eagles he was misplaced the entire time. He should have been a safety from the start, and asking him to replace Malcolm Jenkins, going from, bad cornerback to safety with a diminished Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox playing out of position, and really nobody else, was a horrible thing to do to maybe the most professional, nicest guy on the team in the last 5 years. So I don't think that Rodney McLeod is necessarily the answer, but the aggregate of the defensive backfield for me is much improved as long as you don't ask it to do too much, give it that sort of Emmett Thomas, Ray Rhodes, bend but don't break philosophy.
Understood. To flip it on now, the other side of the football, offensively speaking, Jalen Hurts finally gets named the starter. Not that we were really surprised there. What are you expecting from Jalen Hurts this year? Are you expecting a guy to solidify a future job here in Philadelphia, or are you expecting a guy that will basically be one and done as a starter?
Something in between. I think that at the end of the season, they're going to have a hard choice to make with Jalen Hurts because I don't think he's going to lose you a lot of games. If you remember Donovan McNabb and Ben Roethlisberger in the late 1990s, early 2000s, the key to their success was not losing games, letting the defense and the running game win games, the special teams win games while they learned how to play quarterback. Donovan came from Syracuse, which was an option school, and they did very, very well, but they didn't produce polished quarterbacks. Ben came from 1AA. It took a long time for them to become dangerous starters, but they probably have more talent than Jalen Hurts. That said, Jalen Hurts has plenty of talent, enough talent to be a winning quarterback in the NFL. And I think that's enough. Jalen could probably be a 10 to 12 year starter in the NFL if you don't ask him to be a 10 to 12 year Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson,
Sure.
Minus the issues. He's a very, very good leader. He reminds me a lot of Dak Prescott. Limitations physically, incredible maturity, natural leadership, incredible dedication to his body and developing the skills and talents that he does have.
When you look at Gardner Minshew being here, do you see him as putting Jalen Hurts on a short leash throughout the season, or do you really feel like they're going to give him the year to be the starting quarterback?
You know, that's kind of a weird. That was kind of a weird move, wasn't it? Like Gardner Minshew is exactly the kind of like wackadoodle, flash in the pan, Nick Folesian quarterback that will get the rabble roused.
Oh yeah.
Gardner Minshew's
quarterback factory.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew's not a very good quarterback. He's not a very talented quarterback. There's nothing really special about Gardner Minshew. And I don't like having him with Jalen Hurts. So yeah, I don't know that the leash for Jalen Hurts is going to be as long as it probably should be. And honestly, I think they were so disappointed in Joe Flacco that they went out and got Gardner Minshew, because Joe Flacco was horrible in the first 2 preseason games. So, and they thought that Joe Flacco would be able to push Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts, I mean, he practiced with Joe Flacco and watched him play. He's not worried about Joe Flacco.
Sure.
I don't think he'll have to be worried about Gardner Minshew either, because, again, Gardner Minshew is not that good. He's just not that talented. Mm-hmm. So, and they really have a chance to steal a long-term starter for very little money for the first 3 or 4 years in Jalen Hurts, a guy who, with a chip on his shoulder, who wants to prove everybody wrong, who is willing to do whatever it takes to do that, and not have the massive ego and the narcissistic illness that Carson Wentz had. Carson thought that he was more important than the program. I don't think Jalen will ever be that guy. So, no, I don't think Gardner Minshew makes the lease logically shorter, but you're dealing with, a general manager in Howie Roseman who knows that he's on the clock. You're dealing with Nick Sirianni, who's a first-time head coach, and could be, it might be one and done for him as a head coach and after this season if it implodes. And so, yeah, the leash is probably shorter than it should be.
Well, Marcus, was it you I was reading with the headline, Benedict Simmons and Carson Wentz? Was it? Did you write that headline as well?
I wrote that. That is the Benedict Simmons is a Marcus Hayes creation. TM.
Fantastic. I know a lot of times you always say, hey, the guys don't write the headlines, but in this case you did. Beautiful.
Sometimes you write the headlines. I mean, we submit headlines, and if they're horrible, which they often are, I mean, we have spectacularly talented headline writers, thank God, because most of my headlines are crash and burn. Like, you write them one day. When you go to journalism school, you're told you never write your own headlines. Mm-hmm. But we're asked to write our own headlines now, mainly because you have a hard time sort of getting to the nut graph in your headline, because you've written the nut graph. I feel like I write the nut graph again. So anyway, or you have some sort of weird joke in your mind that everybody's going to get because you've read the story 17 times. Right. But anyway, Benedict Simmons was a 100% market, and I was a little surprised they let it go. I'm surprised they let Julius and Ethel Rosenberg stay in there. That's a loaded pair, but I guess we have some McCarthyist editors on the desk, or we have very young editors who have no idea who Julius and Ethel Rosenberg are.
They just wanted to impress you with their history of spy culture, I guess, in America.
Yes.
Well, I thought it was fantastic. Yeah.
What's that?
I just thought it was great. I thought I was making the association when you said the thing about Carson. So Jalen Hurts in this offense, we covered that. When it comes to Nick Sirianni, what was your major takeaway? Full preseason, full training camp, all that stuff, not in the capacity we're used to because of COVID, obviously. But what were your takeaways from Nick Sirianni taking the reins of the head coach of this football team?
At this point, I just don't think he values practice and rehearsal very much. And I think that's a huge mistake. If you've had this team for 2 or 3 years and everybody knows the system, they know what you want. If you've been a play caller before, then Jalen Hurts taking 2 series, that's fine. The offensive line never playing as a unit in a game, that's fine. But that's not the reality here. If you're going to have a training camp and preseason games, they exist so you can see what you have and where the kinks are. You don't want to be in the Mercedes-Benz Dome or whatever they call it in Atlanta and realize that, the verbiage isn't right, or there's sort of a chink in in the communication between you and Hurts, or there's a blind spot, or there's something you haven't thought of. They had 12 quarters, well, really 8 quarters, because Jalen couldn't play in the second game. He was ill. They had 8 quarters to go through a dress rehearsal, and they didn't do it. Can you imagine putting on a Broadway play with no dress rehearsal? In the Broadway play, there's nobody trying to kill you.
No, but if you want to go more of history culture, there's you never know when John Wilkes Booth is up there somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. How was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Other than that, how was the play? Marcus, I can't think of. Oh, there's one more. Oh yeah, Bill Ordine was my journalism professor at Temple University, and I remember him telling me you can always suggest a headline, but notice it's probably not. Just remember, it's just probably not going to happen. But it's good to know that changed a little bit. Marcus says Inquirer.com. Oh, last thing, do you have a number in your head for the Eagles?
12. It was 12 when the schedule came out. It might be 10 now. Honestly, because of the head coach. I thought if the head coach was competent, they could win 12 games if their offensive and defensive lines played to where they could play. Looking at the competition, understanding who the other coaches are in the NFC East, understanding who the other teams are in the NFC. I mean, the Washington football team, they're going to lose a couple of games to COVID. They just are. They're not very well vaccinated, and their coach is pulling his hair. Ron Rivera is pulling his hair out. Ron Rivera, who's immunocompromised as a recent cancer survivor, is pulling his hair out at the idiocy of these guys. So these other teams are pretty unstable. The Dallas football team has one of the worst coaches in Mike McCarthy in the history of the NFL. Joe Judge, we really don't know about, and that team is kind of wonky. The Washington football team is a defensive line surrounded by a bunch of yahoos and a bunch of nitwits. You got Atlanta, who they haven't been the same since the comeback, and probably never will be. Matt Ryan's 106 at this point. You're going to get walked by Kansas City, and you know it. You're not necessarily going to get walked by Tampa Bay. They're a good team, but you could, if you can get to Tom Brady, as we saw in the Super Bowl, you can beat him. So, I can see double-digit wins. But the fact that Nick Sirianni clearly doesn't have this team ready to go gives me cause for pause. It might be October before they find their footing.
Yeah, I thought a guy that was preaching so much competitiveness and being competitive was talking about practice all the time and not the opportunity to play in a preseason game, which I just thought was, as I said many times on the show,
of a guy who never played in the league.
There you go.
It's like it's a joke. It's like there is no way to replicate even preseason action. And the reason preseason games exist, there's practice, then there's preseason games, right? Then there's the real show. And they missed a step. And they've got a lot of play. Devontae Smith, to a large degree, Jalen Reagor, because those were kind of goofy games that he got in last year. Hurts only had 4, and they were 4 at the end of the year when everybody was kind of worn down. Opening weekend, September in the NFL, there's nothing like it in sports. There's never been anything like it in sports. And every year, it amplifies more because the guys are bigger, faster, stronger every year. This is going to be a million miles an hour for these guys, even guys who played late last year but not early last year.
I'm with you, Marcus. Marcus Hayes, Inquirer.com. Make sure you check out his stuff. Again, here's one of his latest articles. You can check it out, find out even more about this Eagles defense and why there's some reason to be optimistic, more than a couple of reasons to be optimistic about this Eagles defense. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you, my friend. And I know you were playing golf earlier today. And how'd you play?
Lots.
My man. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us on the well-endorsed Rothman Orthopaedics guest line.
My pleasure.
All right, everybody, welcome back. What's happening? So I see the comments flying, and I appreciate all you guys. Big fans of you guys. We'll visit them in the chat. Here's one thing I keep going back to with the future of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts isn't competing against 17 teams this season. He's not competing in 17 games, right? He's competing against potentially 3 first-round draft picks, at least 2 first-round draft picks of the entire draft class for next year and free agency. because that'll ultimately be what's there. I mean, even the idea of Aaron Rodgers being available for a year, 2, 3 years, whatever it might be after this season, that's what Jalen Hurts is competing against. Not only does he have a 17-game schedule to worry about in his first year as a starting quarterback, he also has to worry about everybody else that's going to be waiting in the wings to take his job next year. So that'll be ultimately the most difficult thing. And here's the thing. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the type of guy to be worried about that. He seems like he doesn't give a damn. He's above it all that. Even through the Deshaun Watson rumors throughout the offseason, even the brief heartbeat of Aaron Rodgers rumor in the offseason, that's what he's competing against. So no matter how good he is this year, is he good enough to turn away any other draft pick that could be available, any other free agent class could be available, anybody in the free agent class that could be available? Is he good enough to be better than all of that? To make you go, oh no, Jalen Hurts, again, is not just Mr. Right now, he's Mr. Right for the foreseeable future. That's how good he has to be this season. Now, I would love to see him make at least that decision difficult. And according to Marcus Hayes, he believes that is going to happen. And I'll cross my fingers that happens, because that means that the Eagles had a pretty damn good year. And if Jalen Hurts is that good, then I don't think 10, 11, 12 wins is that far off the mark when it comes to this Eagles team. But as far as just Jalen Hurts goes and knowing what his future is going to be, look, all that really matters is what happens this year. But will this year be good enough to warrant ignoring a quarterback class, ignoring a free agent class of quarterbacks, or whoever is to become available even via trade? That's what's going to be out there. That's what he's going to be competing against. So it's a huge mountain to climb for Jalen Hurts in his second year, and also second year that's under a rookie head coach in Nick Sirianni, whose offense we still have no idea how it's going to look. So that's what Jalen Hurts is up against this season. Thanks to Rothman Orthopaedics, who brings us our guest line each and every day. And Rothman Orthopaedics, let me tell you about them. If you have an orthopedic issue, you need a physician who eats, sleeps, and breathes orthopedics. You need an exceptionally specialized Rothman Orthopaedics physician. They not only specialize in orthopedics, but each of their physicians only focuses in on one area of the body, which means you can have the confidence to get past the pain and be what you were. Visit them in one of their 30-plus locations in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, including 4 orthopedic-only urgent cares. Learn more at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com. Oh, and how about our friends at BetQL? You got plenty of big bets coming up during football season, obviously. Make sure you have all the right information with BetQL. Download the BetQL app, and it'll help you make the smart bets and get the advantage over your sportsbook. Their best bets computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets per year, and it gives you the best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports and gives you the reasoning behind why you should place the bet. Their model covers everything from point spreads, over-unders, player props, and all that with BetQL. Don't want to use the model and prefer to do your own research? You can also use BetQL to do that. They give you all the necessary tools for your betting research needs. Everything from sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineup, and injury breaking news as well. Everything right there at the BetQL app. Head to the App Store or Google Play Store now and download BetQL to make the smart bet. Also want to tell you about our friends at Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. If you haven't tried Steak and Maine yet, people, come on. In the heart of Northeast Maryland, whether you like to dine in the more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that in an extensive wine list, including Cavada Cellars wines. Open every day for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland voted #1 place steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself at steakandmaine.com for more information. And make sure you're following all Philadelphia sports stories with PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. Now it's time for our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine and SteakandMaine.com. All the comments here in the comment section flying today, ladies and gentlemen. Dan's checking in. Good morning, Dan, as per usual. 7-8, a 4.57 ERA is pretty damn good. Question is, are those stats worthy of calling someone an ace? Let the debate rage on. No, they're not. Of course not, Dan. Of course not. as we all sit here and worry about Aaron Nola and what he could give you for his next couple of starts, as the Phillies really need him down the stretch. Good morning, Mally. Mally's back. Dax checking in. Phillies are who we thought they were. They are. I said before the season they give you meaningful games in September. They're giving you meaningful games in September. They're according to the standings, they're in it. I just don't see him making the playoffs. Thank you, Dak and Jay. Dan, Mally, my dude. Good to have Mally back. Mally missed emo Marc yesterday. Mally, I had the dark gray on, my friend. We all were looking for you. April, good morning. So go Birds, right? It's that time of the season. I think it's been for a little bit. I'm told the Phillies sell nothing. I told you the Phillies sell nothing at gas. And we buy it. Okay. Oh, but gas. That's true. Dak and Nola doesn't look tired of hearing about September, so don't bring it up. So I saw in his post-game comments, but you got to acknowledge reality, right? There's something that happens in September to this guy where he just falls apart completely. Broads, what's up, homie? T-Bro, Farzy, chat, what's up, good people? What's up, T-Bro? Nola can kick rocks barefoot until he starts earning his pay. April, God bless you. Ross, good morning to you as well. Dak Broads. Mally, Benny. What's happening, brother? You know who probably loves seeing the Phillies struggle? Negative Sealski. You know what? It's been a while. Oh, man. Don't fail me now. Here you are.
Dan and everybody in the chat, I am not an animal.
Good times. Oh no, shirt. Shirt is a little darker than usual. Is it? I feel like it's my usual blue, I guess. April says today this shirt is a 6 on the emo scale. No, I'm not baked. 2 words that never go together, according to Mally. Phillies bullpen. How true that is. Dumbest thing still going on in Philly sports? Ben Simmons' Instagram. Dan, he has to know what. There's no way he's not reading his mentions, right? And I don't fault millionaires for spending their money. It's on real estate, cars, whatever it might be, haircuts. I don't mind, but it's just funny to me that this is his Instagram. That's the Ben Simmons Instagram. And a fancy car. That's what he's got. Can I get foul shots? That's all I'm asking for. Not that it matters because he's done here anyway. Matt's checking in saying Marcus loves being the contrarian and a heel, and he's good at it. Here's the thing. I know that's how he comes across. But knowing Marcus and having plenty of conversation with him away from a microphone or camera, whatever it might be, it's not contrived. It's not, oh, this guy's saying that, so let me make sure I disagree. I honestly think Marcus watches what he watches and then just comes away and listens to what he listens to and comes away with his own opinion. And he doesn't give a damn what anybody else thinks. And that's why I appreciate his opinion. He doesn't give a damn what anybody else thinks. He has his own opinion. And the whole mob can say this and Marcus will say that. And it's not because he wants to be a contrarian. Marcus isn't the type of guy that is listening to Green Day Dookie album, and I don't know why that always the ones that comes to mind, and says, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world, when everyone else, before everyone else thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and now that everyone else likes it, now he hates it. He's not once it hits mainstream, he's out. He believes what he believes, and that's where he's at. And he's hard to sway off of it because he puts in time to actually read, research, and do all this stuff to make sure that he knows what he's talking about. I will say, he did throw me through a loop when he did say the thing about Ben Roethlisberger, but I've done that plenty of times myself, where the guy, Ben Roethlisberger, is 39 years old. I think he's been around since 1995. That's what it feels like. He was drafted. I forget who said it later on in the chat, but yeah, I think it was Dante. He was drafted in 2004. Dan's challenging me now to a charity fight. All right, let's throw, bro. Let's throw. April says, I don't know. I have faith in you, Dan. Could probably take Emo Marc. And here's the thing you got to remember about Emo Marc. Emo Marc's got demons, yo. I saw some Kids Castle references to the hard streets of Doylestown. Who do you think dug the moat around Kids Castle? Or as I like to call it, Man's Castle. Is that what you said, Dan? Man's Castle? In Doylestown. There's no moat, but that would be pretty cool if there was a lazy river going around that thing. Am I right? I think we could all get behind that. Let's unite. Julian's checking in. Ross checking in. Jalen doesn't have it, Mark. I don't know. I look forward to I think Jalen Hurts will not be the problem this year. Let's put it that way. I don't think we're going to be looking at this season. I don't think we're going to be looking back and saying, well, if Jalen Hurts didn't suck, this team would be great. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a good quarterback, upper half of the quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that's the low point for Jalen Hurts, is that he'll be if you split all the quarterbacks down the middle, he'd be in the top half of that. And I remember, it's funny saying that because I remember Andy Reid in his first year when he got Doug Peterson here. They said, well, wait a minute, who's Doug Peterson? How good is he? And I remember Andy Reid specifically saying, if you took all the quarterbacks in the NFL, from starters to backups, Doug Peterson would be somewhere in the middle. And it was like, gross. Anyway, what else do we have here? Gardner Minshew, at least, over under 6 starts, Dante. That's a good question. I still say under 6 starts. Now, here's the thing. Barring injury or including injury? 12 losses, April. Yeah, no, not happening. 12. Rick saying 12. Is that 12 losses, Marcus? Farzy and Hayes definitely smoked weed before this. Did not happen. Double-digit wins, that's bold, says Sean. I love how he says 12, which is a wild number, and he knows it, then does a 180 and says the coach doesn't have them ready. But he still said, even at worst, he said 12 if Nick Sirianni looks like he knows what he's doing, 10 if he doesn't. And Lester, we'll see where that lines up. Lester, Sean, 5 days away. Go, hey, what's up, Inside the Birds? Thanks for checking in, Brian. Brian's just laughing his ass off. Mally said he heard, and he's so sad he missed Emo Marc. But 12 wins, Farzy, says Taylor. I don't think it's that crazy. I don't think he says that crazy. Luigi says, you have now said moat 3 times. You obviously love the flooding. That's why I didn't bring a weather girl on to warn us last week so you can get your freaking moat. No. If there's anything, I'd find a reservoir, I'd dig a canal, and then I'd build the moat. That's how I would do it. No flooding. Just a reservoir, folks. Just a reservoir. Don's checking in 12 wins this year, maybe over the next 2 years. You never know, Dante. You never know. Or, excuse me, Don Vito. You don't know Don Vito. For Don Vito.
So maybe the Eagles win 12 games this year.
All right, anyway. Thank you, everyone that chimed in on the chat. On our social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Let's move it in now to our Morning Rush segment brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. I mentioned the TO thing to you earlier in the show. Here's the quote we were talking about. And this is Terrell Owens on fighting Donovan McNabb via Club Shay Shay. He says, it would be controlled anger. I'd be like a Navy SEAL. They're cool and calm under all conditions, but there would be a fire burning inside me. I'd knock the chunky soup out of him from 2004. Trust me. Yes, that is a reference from 2004, people, that T.O. is referencing. See, Donovan McNabb, former Eagles quarterback, used to promote chunky soup. And T.O. is saying that he would knock the chunky soup out of him, for those that don't get the reference. Those that might be too young to get the reference. Again, it's, as I was saying earlier, it's the type of rivalry that we all go, oh, God, what are they doing now? But we want to know what they're doing now. And apparently T.O. still very much holds a grudge. And if you looked at Donovan as a guy that held you from winning a Super Bowl, I think you'd hold a grudge too. So although it's a crazy rivalry, I don't think it's dumb. Because I think if any of us were T.O. or any of us were any guys on that team that held a grudge, Freddie Mitchell, another one, I think we'd all feel the same way. So dumb, no. Weird that it's still going on a little bit. Also want to show you this. The Flyers announced their nominees for Hall of Fame. Simone Gagne, Paul Holmgren, Bob Kelly. This is from Flyers Instagram. Lou Nolan, Marc Recchi, Rick Tocchet. How about that list? Simone Gagne, 10th all-time in goals. Rick Tocchet, 6th all-time in assists. 9th all-time in points with 627. Rick Tocchet, leader in penalty. It's saying something if you're the all-time leader in penalty minutes. And also, Rick Tocchet, by the way, Rick Tocchet and Paul Holmgren are first and second all-time in Flyers penalty minutes. They have well over 3,000 total penalty minutes combined. That either one of those guys, it would be great to see them get into the Hall of Fame, or the Flyers Hall of Fame. And Lou Nolan is one of my all-time favorite people in Philadelphia. One of my all-time favorite people in Philadelphia. And I get to talk about two of my all-time favorite people in Philadelphia. In Lou Nolan right now, and that he's a Hall of Fame nominee for the Flyers. Would love to see him get into the Hall of Fame with the big microphone up there, the Flyers PA announcer. One of the great joys of my life. I did a year of public address announcing for the Philadelphia Wings lacrosse team. And at the time, and still, they're run by the same people that run the Flyers. So they said, Mark, to get to know the PA system and all that stuff, why don't you sit in the booth with Lou Nolan? At the time, I don't even know if they knew this, I've known Lou Nolan for, 15 years. I talked to Lou Nolan about PA stuff when I was in college. I met him at a Flyers game. Anyway, fast forward like 15 years, I'm in the booth with him on the ice. And Lou Nolan's doing his whole thing, and I'm just sitting there observing, learning how all the buttons work and all that stuff. And what was so insane, you never think about it, was, oh, God, who was it? Radko Gudas. Radko Gudas gets a penalty in the game. And he's skating off the ice, and he's yelling at the official, and then he comes and sits right next to me. He sat 3 feet away from me, and Lou Nolan is looking at him like, hey, Radko, that penalty was ridiculous. And Radko's like, I know, Lou. Like, there's just and this, I've known him for a long time, and I just really love the guy. He's an incredible guy, and I wish I'd love to see him in the Flyers Hall of Fame for so many different reasons. One of the original employees of the Flyers. The other guy I want to talk about is Herb McGee, who made the announcement yesterday that this year is going to be his last year coaching college basketball at formerly, Philadelphia University, now Jefferson University. And Herb McGee is the second all-time winningest men's basketball coach in the history of college basketball. I appreciate this guy so much for so many different reasons. I know Charles Barkley would always come to, when he came back to Philly, he would always check in with the shot doctor, Herb McGee. Let me tell you what a clinic is like with Herb McGee. First off, I got another story about another professional I'm going to tell you in a second, but just on a personal note, I went to a bunch of basketball camps as a kid, right? I was convinced I was making the NBA, right? And I went to CBE's basketball camp in 1995, I want to say it was. And Herb McGee was one of the guest speakers. And my coach at Mount Carmel, one of my coaches at Our Lady of Mount Carmel when I was playing like grade school basketball, my coach Al Mayo, who made me those shirts from months ago. You guys remember those? And Mike Carty, great guys, just all-time great guys. And Mike Carty learned how to shoot free throws by watching Herb McGee and told me how to shoot free throws based on Herb McGee. Put your finger in the middle of the basketball where the air pump would go, where the air would go in, and you use that as the center. And you put your tip of the finger there, and that's how you would have the follow-through every single time. And that's where you knew to keep your finger. And that's what I would do. And I'll tell you, if I could do anything to help professional sports in Philadelphia, if it was like last man on earth type of situation, and they're like, we need somebody to shoot foul shots. I got you, Philadelphia. I'll knock down those free throws. No running involved. I'm your man. So I told Herb McGee that before I saw him there, knew he was the guest speaker, and I just went up to him. I was like, Herb, my coach learned from you, and he taught me, and now I'm a good free throw shooter, whatever it was. I was like 13 at the time. And Herb McGee's like, oh, thank you, son. I appreciate that. You know, that whole thing. And then we all sat, and for a Herb McGee shooter's clinic at a basketball camp, you would sit around the perimeter and along the baseline. And Herb McGee, because he spoke at the camp the year before as well, would pull a kid out of the crowd. And sure enough, Herb McGee says, hey, son, why don't you jump up here and rebound for me? And I'm like, oh, okay. And all you do to rebound for Herb McGee is stand under the basket, because all he does is stand there at the free throw line. And for a solid 20, 30 minutes, he just stands at the free throw line, draining free throws as he is talking to you and telling you about the art of shooting. He just stands there and tells you about, you want to make sure you have a good balance every time you shoot a free throw. And I'm just catching the ball under the basket and throwing it back to him, and he's catching it and knocking it down. And then he tells you about what you should play as kids. He goes, don't play knockout. Play around the world without chancing it. Like, you don't get a second chance. He goes, practice your half-court shots because you never know when you're going to need them. Be a great foul shooter and always have confidence to shoot. Like, I remember like it was yesterday. And then what was so unbelievably wild was he asked the kids on the perimeter to back up like 3 feet. And then he's like, all right, now play me one-on-one. So I'm now 13 years old, D'ing up Herb McGee. And he somehow miraculously starts running full speed, while dribbling, of course, full speed around the perimeter, gets to the corner, and I'm not kidding you, jacks up a hook shot corner 3. Bank in. I don't even know how he banked it in, but he banked it in from here. Goes around the other side, left-handed, bank in. Same thing. It was like I was playing a Harlem Globetrotter, except this guy was like 65 years old at the time, and I'm 13. And at the end of the talk, he just said, hey, thanks for helping me out. And I sat back down, and it's a memory I'll have forever. I got to interview Herb McGee when he got inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame, God, like 10 years ago. And I brought up that story, and he talked about all the kids that he always had fun with during those clinics and all that stuff. And he's just one of the best guys you could talk to, and he's done so much for the game of basketball. He's a great ambassador to Philadelphia. Even this much, you have a 2-time national champion and now Hall of Fame inductee Jay Wright going to the Hall of Fame this weekend. Jay Wright invited Herb McGee to be one of the people up there with him at the Hall of Fame. How incredible is that? So kudos to Herb McGee and all that. Now, one story about a professional real quick. I'll never forget it. Doug Collins, when he was the head coach of the Sixers and he had Evan Turner, Evan Turner was going to go to Herb McGee as a shot doctor, to correct his shot. And I remember talking to Evan Turner about it, and Evan Turner was worried how it would look that a second overall pick had to go to a shot doctor. He said something else that I'm not going to get into, but he was worried how it would look. And I thought back on that yesterday when I saw the announcement with Herb McGee, and I thought, man, how great would it be if Ben Simmons ran to a shot doctor? Like, if he went to a Philadelphia treasure like Herb McGee, people would love that idea. People would be like, oh, he's willing to do whatever it takes. And this is what I told Evan Turner in that moment. I said, Evan, people are going to love that you did this. People love here when they know, when they acknowledge that you're not playing to your full potential, and you acknowledge it as well as a player, and you're not in denial about it like Ben Simmons is. Not that I said that at the time because I didn't even know who Ben Simmons was. Evan Turner, I said, people are going to love that. You're working hard to perfect your craft. And Evan Turner was like, oh, okay, I guess. Whatever. But anyway, congrats to Herb McGee on a phenomenal career. Good luck to you in your final year coaching at Jefferson University. That's what I got for you today, folks. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a Phillies win later today. Hopefully, tomorrow we'll talk about a Phillies win. We'll get more into the Eagles as well tomorrow. But Kyle Gibson on the hill today, so hopefully give the Phillies a victory. We'll also see what the Eagles have to say in their press conferences later on today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Marc Farzy, and thanks to Jim Hyden who produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Appreciate everybody. Thanks for checking out the show. Make sure you click subscribe on YouTube and also hit us up wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take it easy.